tweet at DriveTimeRTE.
You're very welcome back to the programme. The US President Donald Trump said earlier today that he may or may not strike Iran. Meanwhile, Iran's mission to the UN has branded him a has-been warmonger. The Iranian Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei also made a brief appearance on Iranian TV today, saying that Israel has made a huge mistake, in his words, and his country will not surrender. So what happens next? I'm joined by Fawaz Gerges, who's Professor of International Relations at the London School of Economics, and by Erol Morkoc, who's American political strategist and spokesman for US Republicans overseas. You're both very welcome indeed to the programme. Can I ask you, Fawaz Gerges, first of all, about the comments made by the Iranian regime today? They're saying that any threat will be met with a counter threat, that they won't be backing down. It would be a recipe for all-out war in the region, they say. What do you say to that? I'm not sure if we will try and reconnect with Fawaz Gerges. If Erol, I'll come to you on that. What is your response? How close are we to all-out war, do you think, or a US strike?
Well, I think we have to be absolutely clear that Iran is not a rational actor when it comes to Israel. This is a regime that has openly called for Israel's destruction while funding the proxies on its borders. And I think we're very close in a very scary way. Most Americans don't grasp how ideologically hardline Shia Islam, especially the 12 or clerical elite in Iran, actually is. It's not just a government with weapons. It's a regime that fuses apocalyptic theology with statecraft. And they believe that the chaos is hastening the return of the Mahdi. So it's very tough to negotiate with these type of people as you would with a secular actor. So I would say
but yet a negotiation was penciled in with the US on Sunday. But how close are we at this point, given the actions of the last 24 to 48 hours? How close are we, do you think, to Donald Trump sanctioning a strike on Iran?
I think that we are closer than most people in the MAGA movement want to be. And we are much more realistically aligned with U.S. Geopolitical interests. I think that the U.S. does have a responsibility here. We do have the technology, and we can cut the head off the snake in certain respect. The JCPOA was a Band-Aid on a bullet wound. Iran cheated, enriched uranium past its limits. It played for time, and diplomacy only really works if the other side believes you're willing to use force. And now we've gotten to the point where Donald Trump has signified that he's willing to do it. It's just his restraint. It's the fact that
it's just will he do it? Let me bring in, stay with me, Erol, if you can. Fawaz Gerges, will he do it? Will he strike Iran, do you think?
I don't know. It's very difficult to read Donald Trump. If you ask me to guess, I would say 50 plus. Because Donald Trump is chaotic, he's temperamental, he's contradictory. He says the same thing, one thing, and he basically contradicts it later on. One thing we're very clear about is that Benjamin Netanyahu and his extremist allies in the government could not really have declared war on Iran without a green light from Donald Trump. In fact, today, Donald Trump said that he asked Benjamin Netanyahu to continue the war against Iran. So the reality is, we have to wait and see. But regardless, it seems to me that this is a preemptive illegal war. This is a war of choice. The combined assessment by U.S. intelligence, which was basically reported by CNN yesterday, says, and I'm quoting, Iran was not actively engaged in building a weapon and was far away, 3 years away, from having the ability to build a nuclear bomb. But if you listen to Benjamin Netanyahu and his enablers in Washington and their supporters on your radio, this is an Iraq moment. Do you recall the weapons of mass destruction that Saddam Hussein was supposed to have? Do you recall how the neoconservatives, including Benjamin Netanyahu, was an honorary card member of the neoconservative who justified and legitimized the U.S. invasion of Iraq? And think of the catastrophe that has befallen Iraq and the region. They are doing the same monstrous miscalculation.
Okay, let me bring in Erol. This is the Iraq moment of 2025, Erol.
Well, I have to say, with the gentleman on the line, I agree with a lot of your analysis in terms of about 50-50 and the fact that you can't peg Trump down. I would disagree with the fact that the correlation between this situation and Iraq. When you had Iraq, you had the hardcore neocon element. You had Dick Cheney. You had George Bush. You had all of the people who the MAGA movement and Donald Trump has systematically eliminated inside of our own system, to the point where Dick Cheney was Kamala Harris supporter in the last election. So you have a president who's very much not a neocon, but very much a pragmatist, a realist, and somebody who is America first, but realizes that make America great again isn't the job of the American president.
But his ally is Benjamin Netanyahu, who's accused of genocide.
Yes, his ally is Benjamin Netanyahu. And the curious thing about Netanyahu is that out of all of the leaders of Israel, and people in Israel don't like maybe when I say this, but he's a very transparent person. He's somebody who we actually understand what he wants. What he wants may not be, morally on the up and up all the time. I'm not here to say Benjamin Netanyahu is the world's greatest person, and Donald Trump has had many problems with him as well. But Benjamin Netanyahu has a singular focus, and that singular focus is stated in Zionism.
And the point being made by Fawaz is that this is a preemptive illegal war, and that Donald Trump is working in concert with Netanyahu. So how do you respond to that, Erol, before I go back to Fawaz?
Well, I mean, obviously, there's many ways to look at it, but I think the perspective we have. Well, there are many ways to look at it, because if you look at October 6, October 7, you say that was a proxy invasion. So then, are you going to punish the proxy, or are you going to punish the statecraft master?
May I come in?
So it's very hard to say there's an illegal war. That's
I think
it's a very childish term to say illegal war.
Okay, let him back.
I think they want to have their cake and eat it too. When Hamas launched its illegal and violent attack on Israel on the 7th of October, the entire Western world there was an outcry. Most of us had sympathy with the Israeli victims. Here you have a state, a nuclear-armed state, Israel, according to American intelligence. This is not analysis. Israel has between 75 and 200 nuclear devices, preemptively, unilaterally attacking a state that has developing a peaceful nuclear program and was engaged with in talks with the United States to resolve the problem about enrichment.
Well, we don't know that for sure, Fawaz, to be quite honest, because Rafael Grossi, who's Director General of the International Atomic Energy Agency, told Christiana Amanpour, the interview which you referenced, he did say, we don't have proof of a systematic move towards a nuclear weapon.
I'm sorry. He said, quote unquote,
yes,
we have no evidence that Iran was engaged systematically,
yes, but
in building a nuclear.
I listened to that interview, and I also read the IAEA report, which did point to a failure by Iran to declare nuclear. Okay. Let me finish. A failure by Iran to declare nuclear material activity. Some activity outside the safeguards were viewed. Inspections were obstructed, and that there was a lack of cooperation. There was also an acceleration of the nuclear program, all of which, quite obviously, people got nervous about.
Of course, they should be nervous about. And that's why that's why the Trump administration was basically trying to put pressure on Iran to end. Remember, I mean, you mentioned all of this without mentioning the tipping point. It was Donald Trump who exited the nuclear agreement in 2015. Mm-hmm. Iran respected its obligations, all American institutions. It was Donald Trump that allowed Iran to increase its enrichment of uranium to 60%. And now Donald Trump, the same Donald Trump who's supporting Israel's war against Iran. The question on the table is...
let him ask the question, I'll come back to you. Erol, let him ask the question, and I'll come back to you. Fawaz, please.
The question on the table is the following. Could the Iranian nuclear program be resolved peacefully? Iran was talking to the Americans. An agreement could have been possible. Israel unilaterally and illegally declared all-out war against a sovereign state. Israel has between 75 and 200 nuclear devices, the only state in the Middle East. Creating Benjamin Netanyahu since 2000, he has been gunning to attack Iran. This is not about Iran nuclear program. It's about regime change. This is really what's coming out now after 5-6 days. A brutal, Israeli attacks on Iran.
Erol.
I mean, I would say that you've brought up some very good points, that as soon as Iran was confronted with the fact that they were pushed out of a negotiation where we felt that they weren't being honest, they immediately started enriching uranium further, trying to get a bomb. At the same time, you say Israel has nuclear weapons. It's surprising they haven't used them. What restraint to not use them against the people who keep calling for them to be nuked in their country? I would say that's a positive thing. That shows a country that doesn't want nuclear war.
You're pointing to Israel as positive that they haven't unleashed nuclear weapons.
I was mentioning that the other gentleman said that nuclear.
Is that the point we're at, Erol, in fairness?
Well, the other gentleman mentioned
they have razed
they have
Gaza to the ground. And they have bombed innocent people as collateral damage in Tehran as well, a city in which there are 14 million people, when it could have been, according to Fawaz Gerges, resolved diplomatically.
If it could have been resolved diplomatically, I think that it might have at some point come to that. I think we've crossed the Rubicon, and I think he's right. There is an attempt at regime change in Iran. Absolutely, that's what's going on.
We'll leave it here for the moment. Erol Morkoc, Fawaz Gerges, thank you both very much.